So, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Janice Wray, and I'm here to tell my story. So, it was on November 9th, 2007 that I lost my dad. He was hit by a car while walking across the street. I was only 16 when it happened, and I looked up to him so much. Like, he was my Sunday school teacher, my math tutor, my friend that thought that chocolate peanut butter ice cream could solve anything. He was my soccer coach as well, and it took me a long time to realize and learn how to deal with his death. I'd always been athletic, and I found comfort in running. Running became my therapy after losing him. I'd go to the cemetery and run laps by his gravestone on bad days. But then, on April 1st, 2012, I was driving home on Route 95 North, and I lost control of my car, swerving off into a pole. My car rolled off the highway and down to the woods. I had to wait hanging upside down, completely conscious, until the ambulances came. I knew I was paralyzed the second it had happened, and I actually had to get onto a helicopter and was flown to Yale New Haven's ICU, where I stayed there for a month. I was intubated, and the first stuff that I could kind of start to mouth for, I asked for some worship music, because I was completely determined to dance. I couldn't move at that point at all. I had function in my arms, but not at that point, and I was going to dance, and that meant even if I was just going to shimmy, I was going to dance. Then I was even smiling, and I was on a lot of pain meds, but there was more than that behind my smile. But I was paralyzed. I lost use of my hands don't move, nor do my legs. I'm paralyzed from my chest down. And I had also lost the ability to run, which had helped me cope with my dad's death. So I thought I had lost my future, my plans of becoming a nurse, my dreams. I thought everything was gone. But then I was sent to Spalding. It's a rehabilitation hospital in Boston. I was sent there from May 1st until July 26th. And even after I left the ICU, I had to remain on a ventilator to breathe. I had a tray put in my neck instead of the tube in my mouth. But I hadn't spoken in over a month, and Spalding was about to make me have to learn how to breathe on my own again. I had a feeding tube in my stomach for nutrition. I couldn't move my legs, my hands, and my arms were really weak at that point too. I had been lying flat for over a month now, and so sitting up would cause a huge drop in my blood pressure, and I would either almost pass out and or throw up. So I had no idea where my body was, if I was sitting on a mat or lying on my back on the ground. Needless to say, rehab was really tough. I made little progress in the first couple months. I was stuck trying to convince my doctors that I wasn't this weak girl they saw in front of them, or that my therapist thought I was just giving up and I didn't have the determination to keep going. But my mom knew better. She knew I was a fighter. I was determined. And it turns out that my lungs were filled with 2 liters of fluid. So imagine having a full soda bottle in your chest. It's hard to breathe, and that was me. Once they identified the problem with my lungs, then things started to pick back up. I was exhausted, and I probably burned as many calories as I took in, but I fed myself. I learned how to balance sitting alone in the gym on a mat, and was able to reach out with my arm to touch my nose, and the whole gym started clapping the first time I was able to do that. So that was a good day. And then with like a shaky pen in my paralyzed hands, I learned how to sign my name. I taught myself how to write because I was so determined that I would sign my own name on my discharge papers. I have been sat in a manual chair until the day before I went home, but I was convinced that if I put in the effort to walk before, I was going to put in the effort to roll. As my recovery progressed, so did my assessment of the situation. One thing that I noticed since my accident was that it didn't just touch me, but it touched other people around me, some that knew me, some that didn't. I've termed this what people do because I'm in a wheelchair. One of my best friends ran away, literally across the country. Another friend felt guilty after the accident and tried to drop out of school and then go to rehab to address some issues in her own life. My cousin decided to marry a boy that she had met 3 months prior, learn a new language, and then join the army. Another one of my friends kind of realized that her only hobby was boys, so she gave that up to learn how to fish and then to kayak. My little sister dreamed of swimming with dolphins, so she decided that because I was in a wheelchair, she had to do that as well. Others really stepped up just to be present. Others are still too nervous to see me to this day. I found that a lot of toddlers love my chair though. I don't know if it's because I'm at their eye level or maybe it's lights on my wheels, but a lot of adults only don't see me or all they can do is stare. One time I was at the mall, one of the first times I had ever gone, and I was looking at a shirt and I was asking my little sister if she liked it, holding it up, and she didn't respond, so I spun around and looked back and she wasn't there. So I put the shirt down, rolled to the front of the store, and found her standing there staring at someone. And I was like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Well, I'm staring at her." And I was like, "Why?" And she's like, "She was looking at you." So I have to look at her. So since I'm in a wheelchair, she's become my guardian. Other things that people have done. One girl asked my sister if she's a younger girl that my sister babysits for, asked her if, since I couldn't walk, if I could jump. Another young curious boy came up and asked me what it was like to be in my wheelchair all the time, so I told him it was just like being in a bike all day, or riding it inside. And he looked at me and was like, "Well, you've, 4 wheels too." I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "Well, you don't pedal with your feet." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he was like, "And you're not wearing a helmet." I don't ride my bike all the time. It's not like a bike at all. So a couple of different responses to it. For those that are still nervous to see me, I tell them it's just me, just with an extra set of wheels now. That was like a big changing point that I realized what was going on. It was a milestone for sure. Another thing I've told people is I was 5'9", now I'm just a little shorter. I sit at only about 4'7". But this was a major milestone of who I was. So who am I? I'm the kid that used to be so spontaneous. I'm a daredevil. I'm always someone who would try anything, even if it was new. I'm not so spontaneous anymore, but I love a challenge. I always have. In fact, anytime that I'm ever nervous to try something, like if there'll be a ramp that I can get up, or if my wheelchair is too wide to fit through a door, if I'll have trouble holding something, I have to do it. I have to be able to prove to myself that I can. So I've created my wheelchair to-do list. I've created a list, literally, that I've checked off as I've gone. A couple of things I did. I turned 21 in the hospital, so when I came home, I was like, I have to go to a bar. It's a normal thing to do. So First check mark I made. Then I went to a spa with my sister. I went and I worked out at my old gym. I got my nose pierced. I visited the Newport Mansions. I went to the zoo one weekend with my family. I just bought tickets to go to Mohegan Sun to see a concert and maybe gamble a little for my next birthday. And then I have my wheelchair career list. I started to think how my wheelchair could be an asset in my choice of career options now. This began when Shark Week came on Animal Planet. Sharks have always been my favorite animals. So I thought that maybe this would be my second chance to be a marine biologist. But then the next week I decided maybe I could be a CIA agent because no one would expect a girl in a wheelchair to be undercover. The week after that though, I decided to help my cousin plan her wedding. So I would make a great wedding planner, or maybe a baker, or a psychologist, or an author, and I'd write a book. But then one day, my friend was telling me some symptoms his mom was having. It was a mystery to the doctors still. They were still working on some tests, but I feared the symptoms to be the worst. And a week later, we found out that his mom did have leukemia. After hearing this, it was like a wake-up call that I still wanted to be a nurse. After my accident, like, that was the clearest calling that I had to go back to school and finish what I left off. So next September, I'm actually going back to school. URI is helping me finish my degree. I was a junior. So I'll go back and then hopefully finish my master's to be a nurse practitioner or in nursing education. But there's still more to my story. Do I wish this had ever happened? Absolutely not. But I wouldn't ever wish it on anyone else. Dealing with it is an ongoing struggle, sometimes overwhelming. My bad days are really bad. I have nerve pain, and that is something that's hard to keep at bay. My mom's tried to understand how I feel, what the pain feels like, and the only way I've ever been able to describe it would be like being stuck in frozen snow, unable to find any relief. That, or that my hands are literally in meat grinders. And you would never know unless I told you. There's constant need for assistance. Just 3 things that are even hard are turning in bed to get comfortable at night, opening a door, even pouring a bowl of cereal for breakfast. And accepting that help is something that's hard for someone who was so independent. My body responds differently to like noxious stimulus now. Like if you had a wrinkle in your pants, you could just kind of adjust or, you know, wiggle your pants around, move your leg. But my body has no idea if my pants are too tight, if my shoes are pinching, nothing. So in order for my body to kind of send the signal that something's wrong, it shoots my blood pressure up really high, really fast. So I'll get hot, I'll get blotchy, I'll start to get a really bad headache, and ultimately could have a stroke. It's one of those hard, frustrating side effects of being paralyzed. There was one night that I was drinking a cup of tea that was pretty hot. I didn't know because I don't have all my feeling in my hands. But then the next day I found out that I had 3rd-degree burns all over my fingers. But where do I find my strength on some of these hard days? It comes from a place I found before my accident, before my dad's death. I was always raised in church by my parents, and I was taught to see God and the world all around me. So now I see that in an unlikely place. I see that in not being healed. When people ask me today if I'll ever walk again, I simply tell them no. And I'm okay with that. Of course I would love to walk again, but I'm okay because I know I can do just as much, if not more now. I can meet others right where they are if they need help or support. I can't bring a sense of false hope, but rather hopefully some peace. I didn't have to give up on my dreams. In fact, I don't have to give up much of anything. An example, instead of being able to go for runs in the cemetery, my therapist got me into a hand cycle, and I was able to ride around on the paths at the cemetery, and I actually just got a bike today, so I can do that more often. I can do everything, I just do it a little differently now. So in the future, when I see someone who's experiencing loss, whether it's family, friend, stranger, I can understand. I know what it means to have lost. And with that knowledge, I know and I will be able to help them find their way to a better place.